Hey guys, welcome to the Eerie Side Podcast with your hosts, Sophia,
Elena,
and D.
We appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you're ready to get on the Eerie Side. Before we get into the show, we would appreciate it if you all could give the podcast a follow and make sure the bell notification is turned on so you'll be notified whenever we drop an episode. If you enjoy the show, we would love to have you leave us a review. And if there's a case suggestion or any feedback you'd like to share, feel free to send us a message in the text box below. Share the podcast with family, friends, coworkers, or really anyone you think will enjoy it. And please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Before we begin, please be aware that this episode contains detailed discussions about a disturbing and tragic event involving a gory murder. We understand this subject matter may be deeply unsettling or distressing for some listeners. Listener discretion advised. If you feel this content may be too difficult for you, we encourage you to consider whether you want to proceed with listening. Please take care of yourself and know that support resources are available if you need them. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody! At least happy Thanksgiving to our American audience. We hope that wherever in the world you are listening from, that you enjoy today, spend some time with your loved ones, whether that be family or friends, and have some good food. Maybe that will be turkey for some, or not turkey if you aren't celebrating Thanksgiving. But regardless, because it's Thanksgiving, I have a Thanksgiving episode for you all. So get your turkey or whatever it is you're eating, and let's get started. Okay, so Mom, are you at all familiar with Omaima Nelson? And I say Mom because I think this is more your era, but Elena, if you know this story, please let us know too.
Not that I'm aware of.
Omaima Nelson doesn't ring any bells for you?
No.
No, not for me either.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if either of you have heard of this once I get into it, but in 1968, Omaima was born and raised in Egypt, and she was one of 16 children. Now, she underwent a traumatic operation at the age of 6, the most Egyptian woman back then experienced. And that is, she underwent customary female circumcision at her father's demand. And when I say customary female circumcision, what that means is that according to the geography that a female is part of or an ethnic group, people will say it's for religious reasons. But if you look at other areas where the same religion is practiced, like other countries, or if you look at other ethnic groups who practice that religion, they don't participate in female circumcision. And that is why it's considered customary. For reference, from 2004 to 2015, 87% of Egyptian girls and women aged 15 to 49 years had undergone female circumcision. Then, in 1986, Omaima married Roger Stainbrook, who was an American citizen, and then she immigrated to the United States. But pretty soon after, she divorced Roger. So she would have been about 18 years old at this time.
Wow, that is really young to be going through a divorce.
Yes, you could say that. I say that because it's reflective of Omaima's love life in general.
Yeah.
Omaima lived in Southern California and worked as a nanny, and she also got a modeling job at the South Coast Plaza in Costa Mesa.
Interesting.
During this time, Omaima would have multiple relationships with men and would visit bars to find older men who wanted to have sex. Somehow, I don't think that was hard for her to achieve because, by the way, Omaima is a conventionally attractive woman and that she has naturally very high cheekbones. In 1989, 3 years after she moved to SoCal, Southern California, she received a driver's license, but unfortunately, she received 12 traffic violations.
Wow.
One of them was that she stole a car her boyfriend at the time was leasing, whose name was Jack Houston. She then was caught shoplifting, and when she was caught, she bit the breast of a female security guard, so she was charged with battery.
That's aggressive.
She's definitely a force to be reckoned with. Omaima then found herself in more trouble in November of 1990 when she was accused of attempted robbery by a 61-year-old Robert Hansen. Omaima had supposedly pointed a gun at him while he was tied up during consensual bondage, but ultimately she wasn't charged for the crime. In another relationship with Richard Gray, Richard accused Omaima of putting a knife to his throat, but Omaima claimed it was just part of a sex game. Finally, in October of 1991, Omaima was 23, and she met 56-year-old William Edwin Nelson, who also went by Bill. They met at a Huntington Beach bar where they were playing pool. When they met, Bill had previously been a pilot, but was convicted of smuggling marijuana, so he was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. By the time he met Omaima, he had done his time and been released. After knowing each other for a few days, Bill and Omaima got married.
What? A few days?
Yes, a few days.
You make it sound like she enjoys having relationships with men, but she has been circumcised, and most women who've been circumcised struggle to enjoy that relationship.
That's a good point. I'm just giving you the facts. So there's definitely some debate as to whether she enjoys the sexual aspect of it or not. I don't know the extent of her female circumcision, but I definitely know getting a female circumcision can have anywhere from a mild to a drastic effect on sexual pleasure. I don't know for Omaima how much it was, but a lot of people think that she was still able to enjoy it because she was out there having sex with all these men. I don't know if that's true. Just because she's out there having sex with these men, I think there could definitely be other reasons for that than sexual enjoyment.
True.
I was concerned as to why she's having so many sexual relationships, because when women have female circumcision, most of the times it is painful to have this sexual relationship. So I was wondering if she's trying to make it up for something, or is she really enjoying it?
That's a good point, because at some point Omaima claims that sex for her is painful and people don't believe it. Personally, I think I would not be surprised if she was in pain having sex. And I have my own opinions on all of this, which I'll get into more because I don't want to spoil the details. But my own personal opinion is that I don't think she enjoys sex like somebody who has not been circumcised. I think she's having sexual relationships with all these older men for different purposes. And I do think it's probably to fill some sort of need that probably, in my opinion, stems from her female circumcision and what was done to her at the hands of her father. But I do want to say there's been Egyptian women who've been taken to get circumcised by their mothers too. So it's very cultural.
No, that I understand. I'm just saying that it's interesting she's doing that even though she has freedom. Because I am aware it can be painful.
Now, you can probably tell that Omaima had a hard time staying away from trouble. And spoiler alert, things are not going to turn out well with Omaima and Bill. After they were quickly married, Omaima and Bill went on their honeymoon in Texas and Arkansas to visit some of Bill's family. But their honeymoon would be the end of any potential with these two, because on this exact day, November 28th, 1991, Thanksgiving Day, Omaima would end up hitting Bill with a lamp and stabbing him with scissors until he died. She then proceeded to cut Bill into pieces, boil his head, and cook his hands in oil.
Oh, wow.
Hold on. She cut him into pieces with the scissors?
I don't think it was with scissors.
Oh, because there's no other mention of another.
Yeah, I don't know what she cut him into pieces with, but she stabbed him with the scissors.
Oh, okay.
This was not the turn that I thought we were heading towards.
I know. It's definitely a twist. But I feel with Omaima, it was building up. Like, with what she was doing with all these men, like, something's going on.
I honestly thought you were going to say she was going to get killed. So that's what I thought we were
honestly,
heading.
though, like, dating an older man and, like, her troubled history, I would not have been surprised if you thought that. Yeah. Omaima then castrated Bill.
Oh.
She boiled his hands to remove his fingerprints. She also took his body parts and mixed them up with leftover turkey and shoved other parts down the disposal. Any extra body parts she wrapped with newspapers and put them in a trash bag. Then she would later tell her psychiatrist that she put barbecue sauce on Bill's ribs and ate them.
Ew.
A claim she would later retract.
I wonder why she would want to retract that.
Yeah, I don't know if she ate them or not, but I would not be surprised. I don't know what Omaima ended up eating for Thanksgiving, but I don't think it was only turkey. She may have had turkey, but I think she also may have eaten something else potentially. What are we thinking, guys, so far?
Really? You think she might have eaten something else? I wonder what.
I think it's likely.
Yeah. I'm kind of at a loss of words. I was not expecting.
It's a lot to take in.
She just chopped him up and cooked him. Wow. Did she give him out to anyone to also eat? Or did she just cook him in the food and then just put it in the fridge?
She did not give him out to other people to eat. She put him down the garbage disposal. I think she put him in a cooler. She put his body parts into, actually I may have already said this, put them into aluminum foil and wrapped them up. So she did different things with the body parts.
If she wasn't going to eat them, then why was she cooking it within the food? Just for forensic reasons?
I don't know. I just think she's sick. There is something wrong with her.
I think she might have ate it and she just doesn't want to.
Yeah, but she was doing more than just eating it. If she ate it, she didn't just eat it. She was also trying to get rid of the body too, which I'm into. So I just think she's sick.
Yeah.
Something wrong up there.
Yeah. Omaima claimed that Bill had been sexually assaulting her and that he had tied her up to their bed during bondage play, but that she was able to break free and attack him in self-defense. Either of you believe she attacked him in self-defense?
If she was circumcised as a young girl, which is accurate, and she has been going through pain, I think there could be some emotional part of her, and it could be that he wanted to have the sexual relationship with her, and maybe she was in pain, didn't want to, so I can see that.
What do you think about the fact that she's had other men tied up in bondage play and has threatened them with a gun during this, or a knife?
Then she's an unstable individual. Both can be true. I don't know, but I'm just getting the facts from the story here.
Mm-hmm.
I can't put the puzzle together because I don't know the pieces, but it just seems a little weird, though.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so I'll get into it and then we can discuss further. It's unfortunate that we don't have Bill's side of the story, but if you look at Omaima's history, she's had a lot of previous instances of attacking people, including older men. Her story of self-defense can be a little harder to believe given her history. Bill died because of his stab wounds from the scissors. Something I do want to say is we know Omaima put parts of his body in the garbage disposal, and neighbors heard their garbage disposal being turned on for hours.
Ooh. I'm sorry. Ooh.
Ew.
It's a bad picture, isn't it?
It's terrible to imagine.
Yeah.
But at that point, though, when do you suspect that something foul is going on?
I feel like hearing the garbage disposal is not enough to call out police.
You're probably wondering what they're doing.
They could just have cooked a big meal. I mean, she did technically.
For hours. You're not even supposed to use your garbage disposal for too much.
Did she actually put bones down there? Because it's not even meant for that.
I think she did.
Oh my God.
I'm shocked it didn't break before then.
I know.
Yes.
Bill was over a few hundred pounds and they didn't even find all his body. So the garbage disposal could explain why they didn't find so much of him. Omaima claims that she castrated Bill because of his alleged sexual assaults. And her psychiatrist said that she dismembered Bill for 12 hours straight in what was like a trance-like state due to a psychotic episode she was having.
Okay, so she does have mental issues. This is obvious.
I think it's pretty clear whether you think she did it in self-defense or not. There is something.
She was going through a psychotic break, as the psychiatrist said. So I guess that would explain.
If that's even true. It could be, but even if she isn't, there's definitely something wrong with her.
Didn't she get diagnosed right after she was...
Well, that's her psychiatrist. It was part of the evidence to help her in her trial.
Okay.
After Omaima was finished with Bill's body, she thankfully did some really dumb things, which is she tried to get acquaintances and former boyfriends to help her get rid of Bill's body. I don't know how she thought she was going to convince someone to help her, especially her old boyfriends, since she attacked them.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to go.
Yeah, she thought she could. On December 1st, she ended up asking Richard Gray, who was her ex-boyfriend, that she put a knife to his throat. Well, she asked him if he would help her get rid of Bill's body for $75,000. He told her no, and then he called the police, and then he realized he was lucky he escaped while he did.
So she's not even hiding it at this point, which is crazy. She's like hiding it, but she's openly communicating with people on the phone.
We've already said there's something wrong with her, but there's something very seriously wrong with her, like some sort of disconnect from reality, because she's reaching out to people thinking that they're going to help her. And these are people who, in my opinion, are unlikely to help her. So I think she's just not very balanced enough to understand society, social connections.
Yeah,
something.
that's basically what like a psychotic break is.
Yeah, maybe she did have one.
I wouldn't be surprised if like that part, at least of it, was true. Because it does seem like there is a disconnect here.
Yeah.
I do think she had a psychotic break.
Now, the more you guys talk about it, the more I think you're probably right. There was something that could explain her disconnection. I sometimes wonder if she is permanently like disconnected throughout most of her life and not just during this one instance.
It does sound like something was going on early on also.
Yeah, especially with the other dudes she was dating.
Correct. So it sounded like she was going down a certain path. It wasn't healthy, actually.
It was going to blow up. It was just getting worse and worse. So Richard Gray called the police, and they immediately went to Omaima and Bill's apartment. They found most of the furniture to be stained with blood, and human flesh was all over the apartment, either in tinfoil or plastic bags or cardboard boxes. Police also found a garbage bag of his remains in the car. During their search, police noticed a large soup pot, which Omaima had used to cook some of Bill's body parts.
Ew.
And they also discovered Bill's head in a cooler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's starting to remind me of the Australian case with, I think her name was Kathy Bates.
Oh, I know that case.
Where she cooked her, I think, boyfriend
or ex-boyfriend, something like that.
There was a glass jar that had some sort of body parts, and Bill's hands were in a deep fat fryer.
He was frying his hands.
Mm-hmm.
That's gross, but this is weird.
It's honestly so disgusting that I can't even imagine walking in there as a police officer. It's like you're walking into hell, honestly. Now, Bill was 6 feet 4 inches and weighed 230 pounds, but police only ended up finding about 150 pounds of him. They never discovered his remaining 80 pounds, including his genitals. And who knows if this was due to the garbage disposal or maybe she dumped his body parts somewhere else. I don't know, but I don't think she could have eaten 80 pounds of him that quickly.
That's a lot. If he was on for hours, then a good portion of him probably went down the garbage drain. Did she just expect that she could put a whole body down the garbage drain?
She may have in that state.
It does sound like maybe she wasn't all there. If she thought she could get rid of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I realize this episode is probably going to make all our viewers not want to eat on Thanksgiving. Sorry to have done that to you guys.
Enjoy the feast.
Then on December 2nd, so one day after Omaima told Richard what she had done, she visited 27-year-old Jose Esquivel, who was an acquaintance. She said to him that Bill had sexually assaulted her and showed him cuts on her chest, thighs, and feet, and also showed him ligature markings on her wrists too. She also asked him if he could help her get rid of Bill's body for $75,000, and he said yes, but when he went to his truck, he called the police. So it was just him trying to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
When police interrogated her, she first said that Bill and her had not fought that night, but that instead 2 women and 3 guys entered the apartment the same night, drugged her, murdered Bill, and attempted to frame her by planting his dismembered remains when she let a neighbor borrow Bill's car the next day.
Right.
Omaima was then arrested on a suspicion of murder charge on December 2nd, 1991, and her trial began in Santa Ana almost exactly 1 year later on December 1st, 1992. During that trial, her attorney, Thomas Mooney, claimed self-defense and said that because she had undergone female genital mutilations as a child, sex was traumatic and painful for her, and that this was only increased by the assaults she allegedly sustained during her marriage to Bill. He also claimed that Omaima had experienced child abuse in Egypt and suffered from battered woman syndrome. Unsurprisingly, Omaima accused Bill of domestic violence and sexual abuse during her 3 weeks of marriage and said she had lived in constant fear because Bill threatened her with death or that he would falsely report her to immigration as an illegal alien. This statement from Omaima was challenged by the prosecution, though, which had her ex-husband testify that Omaima never made mention of discomfort during sex, and that did not help her defense. But unfortunately, I don't think everyone always tells their sexual partner if they are experiencing pain. And I'm not saying this was Omaima's case either. I'm just saying that we can't say that she wasn't having it just because she may not have ever expressed it.
That's very true.
And it sounds like she may have been abused or something as a child and learned not to talk about it.
She seems like she had learned to keep her issues to herself.
And
any
I
problem.
wonder if it was just bubbling up.
Mhm.
Yes, and she took it out on him.
Kathy Nelson, Bill's ex-wife, also took the stand and said that Bill had not been violent during their marriage. A medical examination was done in December of 1991 and showed no signs of physical sexual trauma on Omaima, while the pathology report of Bill Nelson revealed that he had ligature markings on his wrists, which meant that he was tied up right before he died. So it's looking like she had him tied up and then stabbed him. And that makes sense as to how she was able to stab him with scissors, because if he's tied, he has no defense. And he's a big guy too. He's 6'4", I believe. If he wasn't tied up, I think it'd be harder for her to overtake him and kill him.
He is older, though, also, correct?
That's true. He's 56, and
Oh,
his
okay.
pictures, he looks a little older, but I think it was just how he dressed, probably.
Okay.
Prosecutors claimed that Omaima had used her beauty to get older men to lavish her with money, pay her rent, and buy her cars. And I also just want to say the area that she is in for that, not just Southern California, but Orange County specifically, and especially Newport Beach. Girl, she was in the perfect area for that if that was her mission. She was finding a lot of these guys in like Newport Beach, Huntington Beach. It's definitely perfect for that. Bill Nelson's attorney, John Fitzgibbon Sr., said that he had met Omaima in Laredo, Texas, when Bill and her were on their honeymoon. Bill and Omaima told John that they had gone and married in an Egyptian ceremony in either Las Vegas or Phoenix on November 1st, but neither city had records of their marriage. Acquaintances and co-workers of Bill Nelson described Bill and Omaima as affectionate, but some did have suspicions that Omaima had married Bill for his money. An attorney representing Bill Nelson's ex-wife, Kathy Nelson, said that their own divorce proceedings between her and Bill had not yet been complete at the time, and she, along with the prosecution during Omaima's trial, called the validity of their marriage claim into question. Which, if Bill was still legally married to Kathy, I wouldn't be surprised if he had done an Egyptian marriage ceremony with Omaima, because it wasn't legally binding. So if he did want to marry Omaima, the Egyptian ceremony would have been a way to do that, since he couldn't have done it legally since he was still married to Kathy. Or maybe for him, he didn't care that they got married so soon because it wasn't even legally official yet. It was a ceremony, but it wasn't legal. So maybe he was just having fun. He's in the middle of a divorce, so he's a single man. He's got a young, attractive woman who is into him. He may have been just taking it easy for all we know.
Now, they got married in Egypt or just had an Egyptian ceremony?
They just had an Egyptian ceremony.
In the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So if they never did what they have to do, it could not stand. Yes.
Is she using his money for lawyers?
I don't know. I'm not actually sure what money she's using to pay for the lawyers.
Because then you could argue it's not his.
How could she use his money, though, if she wasn't married to
That's
him?
what I'm saying. That's why I was wondering if she tried to, and then they argued you're not
Right.
technically his wife.
That could be. I'm not sure. After the jury deliberated for 6 days, Omaima was convicted of second-degree murder on January 12, 1993. She was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison and unsuccessfully appealed the verdict in 1995. From 1992 to at least 2011, Omaima was in prison at the Central California Women's Facility, but was then transferred to the California Institution for Women. Throughout her time in prison, Omaima has had multiple long-distance relationships. In 2006, Omaima claimed to have become a born-again Christian. Around the same time, she gained the rights to conjugal visits with one of her suitors, a man in his 70s who ended up dying in 2011. Just like with Bill, she claimed that they had become married, but prison officials deny this. She also attempted to petition for habeas corpus twice, in 2002 and 2019, but was denied each time by the circuit court. Habeas corpus is basically when someone claims they've been unlawfully imprisoned and asks for a review to determine if they have been unlawfully imprisoned. In prison, Omaima has received a number of disciplinary infractions, including fighting, battering a staff member, possession of contraband, theft, arguing, failing to comply with instructions, and not being in compliance with grooming standards. So it's safe to say Omaima seems to struggle to behave no matter where she is. Omaima first became eligible for parole in 2006, but was denied when commissioners found her unpredictable and a serious threat to public safety. She became eligible again in 2011, but was denied by the parole board again, citing that she had not taken responsibility for the murder and would not be a productive citizen if she were freed. She would not be able to try for parole again until 2026. And that is the case of Omaima Nelson. What are your thoughts?
I definitely think that there's something unbalanced with her because it just seems she goes in jail and she's still trying to get older men to come and visit her.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something wrong with her mentally, and I'm glad they don't let her out because she does sound like she is dangerous to society.
I definitely am really shocked. Not shocked by this case because we see their case of men and women doing crazy things, but I just did not expect this case to go in that direction. But I do think that there are most likely some sort of mental issues that she seems to be dealing with and is still affecting her. There's a sense of overkill, but I do think she still needs to be in prison. She still hasn't been reformed yet. They're taking it seriously, and that's good.
I agree with you both. I'm glad she's still in prison because I do think she's a danger to the public. So I appreciate them thinking about that and trying to keep us safe.
It does seem like she was still up to her old tricks even now with the other older guy.
And the fact that she claimed they were married and they weren't says a lot too.
I wonder if they have her seeking any mental help while in there.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Because they do, but I'm not sure.
You never know.
Why do you think she murdered him?
I think it was all building up, and I think something happened that night and she snapped. Then she had some sort of possibly a psychotic break, and then afterwards just had to try and clean it up, and maybe she still wasn't in the right space and thought she could put his whole body down a garbage disposal and had to improvise and then got caught.
I do think the same thing, like she had some mental break and at some point was still in it. At some point she came out. But there is something wrong and something did trigger it. And I don't know. I think it probably has to do with her childhood and whatever else is wrong.
I agree with you both. I don't think it's for money at all because she wasn't even legally married to him and it would have benefited her more financially if he was still alive.
True.
It seems like she came close to doing this potentially with some of the other men, but then didn't. And granted, she wasn't married to them. So if she had killed them, she wouldn't have gotten any money from their deaths. Not that she did with Bill because she wasn't legally married. They were just claiming that they were. So I don't even know if she thought she would profit or benefit from his death. Again, she's so unbalanced that maybe in her mind she thought she was going to profit from it. But because she's so detached from reality, I don't think she thinks of the consequences of her actions. She was committing all of these crimes, except for the murder, before she was with Bill. And I wondered if she just murdered Bill and did not plan it, because her idea to get her exes to help her cover up her murder is such a bad plan.
Yeah.
She sounds very impulsive. And honestly, I wonder if her circumcision has something to do with what she's doing to these men.
I think if you take her situation, I would say circumcision is just one part. And if any of that occurred to her where she was abused as a child, that creates a lot of trauma and a buildup.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, but now it's like she reversed it potentially. If this happened to her, right, she is now in the control seat and has the power because she's tied up all these men with bondage and she's the one who's threatening them with a knife or a gun. And then she even castrated Bill.
So all that sounds like from trauma of childhood, especially tying up the men and then trying to take power because she never had the power of her childhood. So I am not surprised. I'm not saying she should get out, or I'm just saying she does have issues.
Even if this was caused by something in her childhood, I hate to say this, but she's probably beyond repair. And I think she's way too dangerous to release because she could do this again too.
She needs a lot of therapy, and I'm not sure she is at any mind process or thought to be able to even do it.
If they're giving her any help, and I don't know if they are. Nothing.
Other than medication, she also needs one-on-one therapy or therapy of whatever they do. I'm not sure they offer that.
It's devastating, especially when you see what she turned out like.
Yes.
I'm not going to comment on, I guess, things that may or may not have happened in her life since we don't know. But clearly, I feel like something happened most likely in her past. And that could have been the circumcision, and it could have been other things as well. But I think something definitely happened that kind of affected her mentally, that led her down this path and led her this way.
We know she was circumcised. We don't know what other traumatic instances that could have happened in her childhood that could have influenced all of these situations. But just a reminder, we just don't know. I want to thank you all for listening to us this week. We love our listeners, and because of you, we do this podcast. Your help and engagement really helps the podcast grow. If you enjoyed this episode, please text a friend and family member to listen to our podcasts. Until next time, make sure you stay on the eerie side. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Be safe.